Anybody else that want drama, come see us, man. Come right here, man. We be right out here. If you want drama with us, we right here, son.
Word. QB,
Never
baby.
stop. The war's on 24/7. Make no mistakes.
We ended up taking it there, man. Ran in the studio with 9 guns, two shotguns, slapped a few cats up.
This other kid over here, they pistol whipped him.
Sent the home naked and all that.
Kicked the shit out of him.
Showed them how we do this, man. We ain't playing no games.
One thing Mobb Deep was known for was their long list of high-profile beefs. They'd throw lyrical shots, disrespect their ops in public, and humiliate them without holding back. But there was one guy who wasn't playing by their rules: Tru Life.
He treated me like I was some funny style nigga. I tried to holler, he play games. So I had to wake him up, let him know what I was about, you know what I mean?
Unlike Mobb Deep, he wasn't about the rap battles or slick bars, he was about violence. So when their paths crossed, things got ugly real quick. Let's get into it. The clash between Mobb Deep and Tru Life was bound to happen sooner or later. They came from two completely different worlds, representing two different kinds of power. Mobb Deep had the backing of respect, status, and years of credibility. Tru Life, on the other hand, was the new kid on the block, unpredictable and explosive. So when their paths finally crossed, it was a collision between the old guard and a street-hardened newcomer. Mobb Deep, the duo of Prodigy and Havoc, were pillars of New York hip-hop in the 1990s. They helped cement the city as the home of grimy, hardcore rap that spoke for the streets. Prodigy, whose real name was Albert Johnson, and Havoc, born Kejuan Muchita, officially came together as Mobb Deep in 1990, straight out of Queens. But their story didn't actually begin in Queensbridge. It started in Manhattan, at the High School of Art and Design. Both of them were about 15 when they met. The school wasn't your regular high school. You had to take an entrance exam and show a portfolio just to get in. Students there had 2 full periods of art every day. Havoc enrolled first in 1988, and Prodigy joined later.
You know, I met him through a mutual friend in high school. You know what I mean? I got to the high school before him, the High School of Art and Design in Manhattan. You know what I mean? Then my junior year, he came in.
Before they became the notorious Mobb Deep, they went by the name Poetical Prophets. They were 2 short, scrappy teenagers spitting hardcore rhymes about the street life they saw around them, smoking blunts, hanging out, and surviving however they could. What they lacked in size, they made up for with hunger. These 2 weren't waiting around for a record deal to fall into their laps. Their come-up story is pure grind. They made their own demo tapes and would literally pull up to the buildings of record companies listed on the back of rap albums, hoping to catch someone important walking by. They'd wait outside Def Jam, Loud Records, anywhere that mattered. And one day, their persistence paid off. While standing outside Def Jam's office, Q-Tip from A Tribe Called Quest walked by. Unlike everyone else, he actually stopped to listen. He liked what he heard and decided to bring them inside, introducing them to industry people and opening doors that had been locked before.
Q-Tip, man, like brought us into the Def Jam office and started introducing us to people, and that's when we started going to a lot of industry functions, a lot of parties and meeting other people.
Q-Tip became something of a mentor to them. He even helped out on their breakthrough album, The Infamous, which would go on to define that classic grimy New York sound. But what really gave Mobb Deep their edge wasn't just the beats, it was where they came from. Queensbridge houses was their foundation, the biggest housing project in America and one of the roughest. It was a world within a world, filled with its own slang, codes, and constant tension. Havoc grew up there, and his sound came from it. His father was an artist and a DJ, and when he left the family, he left behind a stack of records. Havoc took those records and started experimenting with beats, chopping and layering them until he found that dark, gritty sound that became Mobb Deep's signature.
The opportunity was there because my father was a DJ, you know what I mean? So he used to have a lot of old records around, you know, laying around. And then when I met Prodigy, you know what I'm saying, his grandfather was a jazz musician.
Their lyrics painted vivid pictures of that world, the fear, the survival, the codes of loyalty. Prodigy had a way of pulling you right into that reality with his opening lines. He had this gift for starting a verse that instantly demanded attention, the kind of opening that made you stop whatever you were doing and listen. And beyond the music, Prodigy wasn't afraid to speak his mind. That unfiltered honesty made Mobb Deep authentic, but it also got them into trouble. Mobb Deep's image was that of unbreakable street warriors, always ready for whatever, 24/7. They projected strength, fearlessness, and an unwillingness to be disrespected. That same energy carried them through confrontations with rap heavyweights like Tupac and Jay-Z.
And them too, because they've been talking a lot of shit. I got them. I got songs for them. I got this song called When We Ride on Our Enemies. You barely living. Don't you got sickle cell? See me have a seizure on stage. You ain't living well. Hell, how many want to be involved? See, I was only talking to Biggie, but I'll kill all of y'all.
But it also blinded them. They believed they couldn't be touched, that their legend alone made them untouchable. So when they ran into Tru Life, a young, fearless Harlem rapper who wasn't impressed by their status or their reputation, they underestimated him. Roberto Guzman Rosado Jr., better known as Tru Life, was born on March 19, 1976, and raised in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, one of New York City's grittiest and most unpredictable neighborhoods. He came up in the Smith Houses projects, a place where survival was the first skill you learned. Back then, the Lower East Side was rough, poverty everywhere, drugs on every corner, and cops constantly harassing young men through stop and frisk. The crack epidemic had turned whole blocks into war zones, and only the sharpest, toughest, or luckiest made it out. But out of all that chaos, Tru Life stood out. People from his block would later say he was the most well-known person from the Smith Houses, the one who put their side of the city on the map. The LES has always had a unique hip-hop identity, small, tight-knit, and fiercely proud. It wasn't Brooklyn or the Bronx, but it had its own voice, and Tru Life was that voice. He jumped into the rap game in 1999, landing a deal with DreamWorks Records. On paper, it sounded promising, a big label, real budget, and a chance to make his mark. But that deal went nowhere fast. His debut album, Crying Out Loud, was supposed to drop in 2001, but it never saw the light of day. The label shelved it, supposedly because they weren't ready to push black music. For Tru Life, it was a slap in the face. After that, he disappeared underground, biding his time and waiting for another shot. That second shot came through Jay-Z. Tru Life managed to connect with him and landed a deal with Roc La Familia, a branch of Rockefeller Records that Jay-Z created to spotlight international and street-rooted talent. According to Tru Life, he even asked Jay-Z personally to help him out of his old Def Jam contract before signing with Roc La Familia.
I'm a free agent right now, but that's only, by choice. And really that's just because Jay freaked me up out my contract when he left Def Jam. I didn't want to stay on Def Jam without him. You understand what I'm saying?
Jay saw something in him, raw energy, street authenticity, that fearless attitude you can't fake. When Jay-Z introduced him on one of his mixtapes, he basically told the world that Tru Life was the truth, someone who wasn't here to play industry games or spit fake lyrics. And that was exactly who Tru Life was. He was known for being unpredictable, a volatile Puerto Rican rapper from the LES who wasn't scared of anyone. His career wasn't built on clever punchlines or chart-topping singles. Most people couldn't quote a Tru Life lyric to save their life, but they knew his name because of the chaos that followed it. He was more feared than he was admired, and that became his brand. He clashed with just about everybody: Jim Jones, Cameron, Hell Rell, all of Dipset at one point. Tru Life lived by his own code. He didn't care about rap politics or the industry's rules. He'd wake up, pour himself a bowl of Fruity Pebbles cereal, and top it off with rosé champagne instead of milk, something he jokingly called his breakfast of champions. It was his way of saying he'd made it his way. So when Prodigy and Mobb Deep brushed him off, they weren't just disrespecting a rapper, they were disrespecting someone who lived by the same code they rapped about. The war between Mobb Deep and Tru Life didn't start with diss tracks or subliminals. It started with business gone wrong, a simple transaction that spiraled into one of the most personal beefs in New York rap history. In the late 90s, Tru Life was still an upcoming rapper trying to make his name in a city packed with giants. To boost his profile, he reached out to Prodigy from Mobb Deep for a feature, a verse he could use on a track that also featured the legendary Kool G Rap. The song was called When You're a Thug, and for Tru Life, it was supposed to be a major career move. He paid Prodigy for the verse, expecting it to be exclusive. He planned to use the track to shoot a small video or put out a vinyl single, anything to help push his name further. But then Prodigy made a mistake that would light the fuse for everything that followed. After delivering the verse to Tru Life, he reused the exact same verse on another song, Never Going Back. which ended up on the Any Given Sunday movie soundtrack. That soundtrack dropped first, which meant the verse Prodigy sold Tru Life was already out there, heard by millions, before Tru Life's version could even get a release.
Mobb Deep incident, man, we did a record together, me, Prodigy, and Cool G Rap, you know what I'm saying? And we had a little buzz going with the record, and then played itself and spit the verse on another record, you know what I'm saying? Guess he wasn't that talented, and when it spit the verse on another record, when we paid him for that verse already, so we ended up getting into a little controversy.
Suddenly, Tru Life's song was worthless. The verse he paid for, the one that was supposed to help his career, was now old news. To make matters worse, the lyrics themselves were about ambition, struggle, and survival, lines that felt painfully ironic given what had just happened. For Prodigy, it probably wasn't personal. The soundtrack deal came with more money and exposure, 5, maybe 10 times more than what Tru Life had paid. To him, it was business. But to Tru Life, it was straight up disrespect. He'd put his money, time, and pride into that song, and Prodigy had treated him like he didn't matter. That's where the line got crossed. Tru Life didn't just feel played, he felt humiliated. And in the Lower East Side, humiliation is something you can't live with quietly. He tried to handle it the right way at first. He called Prodigy, he called his manager, he reached out multiple times, trying to settle things peacefully, maybe get his money back, maybe get a new verse. For weeks, he made calls and got nothing back. Radio silence. To him, that silence spoke volumes.
I made the phone call. I made more than one phone call. I was calling these kids for over a month, 2 months. You know what I'm saying? I'm calling everybody. I'm calling their manager. I got my manager calling. I got this one calling, that one calling. And you know, they was just showing me no respect.
From his perspective, Mobb Deep was acting like he was beneath them. Eventually, anger took over. He decided enough was enough. If they wouldn't answer the phone, he'd pull up in person. Tru Life felt like he needed to remind Prodigy that not everyone played by rap's rules. Some people still played by the streets. What started as a business misunderstanding turned into a mission to wake him up, as Tru Life later put it, to show him what happens when you disrespect the wrong person.
He treated me like I was some funny style. I tried to holler, he played games, so I had to wake him up, let him know what I was about, you know what I mean?
That decision would shift the entire tone of the beef. Mobb Deep thought they were dealing with another rapper looking for clout. What they didn't realize was that they were dealing with a man who didn't care about fame or records, a man who was willing to take it beyond music, no questions asked. And once Tru Life made that decision, there was no turning back. So one night, Tru Life and his crew planned what would become one of the most infamous retaliations in rap history. They decided to hit Mobb Deep where it hurt, not on stage, not online, but right in their workspace. The target was Mobb Deep's Manhattan recording studio, a known spot where their affiliates often hung out. Tru Life gathered his people, armed and ready, not for intimidation, but for action. According to Tru Life's own recollection, his team came in fully loaded. They stormed the studio with heavy firepower, multiple handguns, shotguns, and Uzis. It was a full-blown raid, the kind of thing you'd expect from a movie scene, not a rap beef. Inside that studio were members of the infamous Mob, a crew closely tied to Prodigy and Havoc. Ironically, neither Prodigy nor Havoc were present when it all went down. The people who were caught in the middle were their friends and collaborators, producer The Alchemist, Malik the Hitler, and other members of their circle. Once Tru Life's crew burst in, chaos erupted. This wasn't just about stealing or fighting, it was psychological warfare. They pistol whipped a few people, robbed them, and stripped them completely naked before sending them out into the street.
Oh, we ended up taking it there, man. Ran in the studio with 9 guns, two shotguns.
Running with Uzis and shotguns and guns.
You know, slapped a few cats up.
This other kid over here, they pistol whipped them.
Sent them home naked and all that.
For Tru Life, this wasn't random humiliation, it was a message. He wanted to show them that he wasn't playing industry games, that he could reach out and touch anyone associated with Mobb Deep. In his words, the act was meant to prove a point, to show them how we do this, that disrespect comes with consequences. A gunshot even went off inside the studio, further amplifying the tension and fear that night. But what made the whole thing even more striking was who didn't get touched. 2 major names happened to be in the studio at the same time, GZA from the Wu-Tang Clan and DJ Muggs from Cypress Hill. Despite the madness, Tru Life's crew didn't go after them. They made it clear they weren't looking for random beef. They were there for a specific reason and specific people.
They didn't even look at me. They didn't even look at Jizza. You know what I mean?
A few of your favorite rappers was in there. You know what I mean? At gunpoint with guns to their face and shit. but it ain't nothing, you know what I'm saying? There wasn't no drama with them.
GZA and Muggs were left alone, completely unharmed, though Muggs later tried to downplay what happened, looking visibly uncomfortable when asked about it. That night changed everything. The streets were buzzing, and word spread fast. Mobb Deep, the same duo who had built their careers on stories of blood, danger, and street warfare, had just been hit with real-life violence. Their crew had been humiliated in the worst possible way, stripped of everything, both literally and figuratively. It was the kind of moment that could shake the toughest reputations. For Mobb Deep, the fallout was complicated. They didn't want to feed the story or give Tru Life any more attention. Publicly, they stayed silent. When the incident was brought up in interviews and eventually covered in the Beef documentary, Prodigy refused to discuss it. He brushed it off completely, basically saying the topic should be deleted from the tape altogether. That silence became their defense mechanism. By ignoring it, they hoped to take away its power, refusing to validate the attack or acknowledge Tru Life's street victory.
The incident with us and him? All right,
We're not even gonna talk about that. That's totally out the whole tape. You gotta erase that part.
Still, behind closed doors, the incident stung. Even though neither Prodigy nor Havoc had been there that night, they felt the weight of responsibility. Their name, their brand, had taken the hit. The crew that bore the Mobb name had been violated, and that kind of stain was hard to wash off in a culture that valued image and fearlessness above everything else. Over time, Havoc began to drop subtle lines in his music, throwing veiled shots that hinted at the situation, bars about people being cloud killers or shooting in the air, small reminders that the pride of Queensbridge hadn't gone anywhere. Prodigy, on the other hand, kept his distance, choosing silence over retaliation. As for Tru Life, even though he'd won the battle in the streets, it didn't feel like a victory. In later reflections, he admitted he regretted how far things went. He said it didn't give him the satisfaction he expected, that he let his pride take control. In hindsight, he wished he'd handled it differently, maybe dropped a diss track instead of running up in a studio with guns. He realized that the people he confronted weren't even built like that. They weren't the street soldiers he thought they were. They were rappers caught in the middle of a situation that had spun way beyond music.
Part of being a man is learning how to swallow your pride. And I guess that's one time that I slipped, and men make mistakes. You know, we're human beings. And I slipped and I made a mistake, and I didn't swallow my pride that time. My pride got to me, and it was too big. I kind of almost choked on it.
Still, that night became legend, a dark reminder of how blurred the line between rap and reality can get. After the infamous studio ambush, the ripple effects hit way beyond Tru Life himself. Anyone even loosely connected to him started catching heat. One of the main people caught in the crossfire was Brooklyn rapper Saigon, Tru Life's right-hand man and close friend. The two were tight. Saigon often called him his brother, but in the world of hip-hop beefs, loyalty comes with a price, and being seen with Tru Life meant you were automatically seen as part of his war. Mobb Deep's crew didn't care about who actually did what. To them, Saigon was guilty by association. Saigon wasn't some distant friend watching from the sidelines either. He was in the mix, part of the wild antics that fueled the conflict. He later admitted that he was there when Tru Life and his crew burned stacks of Mobb Deep CDs on camera, calling their music trash. It was all part of a larger movement they had going on, an early form of trolling before social media made it popular. They'd release DVDs filled with flashy footage, jewelry, cash, and disrespectful clips mocking other rappers. Back then, that was the internet. It was how you sent a message. Even though things were getting more serious, Saigon tried to balance loyalty with logic. He didn't want to betray his friend, but he could feel the temperature rising. Mobb Deep's people were watching him closely, and it became clear that neutrality wasn't an option. He later admitted that he sometimes felt forced to take part in the drama, because not doing so might make him look weak. At one point, Saigon joked that Tru Life must have taken Mobb Deep's hardcore lyrics literally, as if the songs were an open invitation to handle things in real life. The situation eventually boiled over at New York City's iconic venue, SOB's, in 2007. Saigon showed up that night under the impression that Mobb Deep was headlining. Things seemed cool at first, The crowd was live, and the energy felt positive, but things turned sour fast. A DJ pushed him to perform his single, even though Saigon had a bad feeling it wasn't the right time or place. The second he got on stage, he started noticing familiar faces, Mobb Deep's crew, slowly surrounding him. Before long, there were over a dozen of them, closing in. As soon as he stepped off stage, all hell broke loose. Saigon recalled being grabbed up immediately, with guys pressing him and one of them flashing a gun. They told him they could end him right there. Despite being outnumbered, Saigon said he was ready for whatever came next, fully prepared to fight it out even if it meant not walking away. It was pure chaos, the kind of scene that could have gone horribly wrong. In the years that followed, Saigon admitted that the aftermath hurt his career more than anything else. His association with Tru Life cost him a huge chunk of his fan base, and the incident at SOBs got him blacklisted from major platforms like Hot 97. He later met up with Havoc from Mobb Deep and reflected on it all, admitting that staying loyal to Tru Life ended up setting his career back in a major way. Looking back, he said he was lucky just to walk away from that night without serious injury, because if fate had flipped the other way, it could have been the end of him. As all this was going down, Tru Life's reputation was morphing into something bigger and darker than that of a rapper. The studio raid had already painted him as a real-life menace, a guy who didn't just talk tough on records, but actually lived it. Word on the street was that he was one of the few rappers nobody wanted beef with at the time. Tru Life had crossed the line between rap beef and real violence, and that made him unpredictable. He leaned into that image completely. It became his brand, the wild, untouchable street figure who answered disrespect with action. His biggest target became Dipset, the Harlem collective led by Cam'ron and Jim Jones. After Jim Jones mocked his single, The New New York, Tru Life went on the offensive. He dropped a mixtape called Tru York, dedicated solely to dissing and embarrassing the entire crew. Around the same time, stories started circulating that he was out there humiliating rappers left and right, allegedly robbing Jim Jones for his chains, chasing Juelz Santana, and even claiming he slapped Cam'ron. Whether or not every story was true didn't even matter. His reputation for violating rappers every month became part of his myth.
Jimmy Neutron, you try to say this piece don't exist? There's only one who do this. Step the diamond game up, my. You're not balling. It look better on cameras. I'm seeing it right there. Look, put the game. It look better on camera. Garbage.
He took the trolling further than anyone else. Tru Life even released an image of Jim Jones wearing a Borat-style mankini just to mock him publicly. He bragged about once providing Jim Jones with bulletproof vests during a street conflict, calling it irony since he later turned against him. Everything Tru Life did was designed to reinforce the idea that he wasn't playing games, that he was a real street dude in an industry full of pretenders. He also embodied this larger-than-life swagger that made him fascinating to fans. He called himself the prettiest mother-effing gangster, and his lifestyle backed up the statement. He'd do outrageous things just to prove how untouchable he was, like eating Fruity Pebbles with rosé champagne instead of milk, saying it tastes like success. When Jay-Z's Rock La Familia label signed him, it seemed like Tru Life was finally about to transition from street legend to legitimate star. But even that came with complications. Insiders whispered that Jay didn't sign him for his lyrical potential, but more because he needed a soldier, someone fearless enough to take shots at Dipset during their feud. Tru Life's music career was always intertwined with violence, so while his deal was high profile, it didn't last. In the end, Tru Life's legacy became less about his songs and more about the chaos that followed him. He was the last of a dying breed, a rapper who truly lived the street life he rapped about, for better or worse. But that same authenticity came with consequences. The same volatility that built his reputation also led to his downfall. The streets that once crowned him eventually demanded a price, and Tru Life found himself caught between fame, loyalty, and the brutal reality of the life he'd been representing all along. In June 2009, Tru Life's story took a dark and devastating turn that would change everything for him. What started as a heated argument inside a Midtown Manhattan nightclub ended in a tragedy that no one saw coming. Tru Life and his older brother, Marcus Rosado, were out that night when a confrontation broke out, the kind of situation that spirals out of control before anyone can calm things down. The argument carried over into the street and eventually into the lobby of an apartment building on East 26th Street. By that point, Tempers were high, adrenaline was pumping, and things went way too far. Inside that lobby, the Rosado brothers chased two men, 20-year-old Christopher Guerrero and 30-year-old Jason Gray. What happened next was brutal. Guerrero was stabbed in the stomach and collapsed, while Gray suffered a deep slash that cut through one of his arteries. When it was all over, Guerrero didn't make it. He died from his injuries, leaving his family shattered. His brother, Jason Ramirez, later said that Christopher had been unarmed and defenseless when he was attacked, and he felt the justice system had completely failed them. For Tru Life, it was the lowest point in his journey. He'd gone from being one of New York's most feared rappers to sitting in a courtroom, facing the possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars. The evidence and the charges were serious: murder, assault, gang involvement, the kind of accusations that come with decades in prison if convicted. As the trial loomed, Tru Life had to make a painful decision. He eventually agreed to a plea deal, accepting guilt for gang assault in exchange for a reduced sentence. His brother Marcus admitted to being the one who committed the actual stabbing and pleaded guilty to manslaughter. In 2011, Tru Life was sentenced to 8 years in prison, and Marcus was given 10. Through their lawyers, both brothers expressed remorse and sent their condolences to Christopher Guerrero's family. They said they hoped taking responsibility might bring a small sense of closure to those grieving, even though nothing could truly make up for the loss. But even after the sentencing, Tru Life maintained that the situation wasn't as straightforward as it seemed. He said he pleaded guilty not because he was guilty of what they accused him of, but because the system was stacked against him. He believed that fighting the case would have meant risking a much longer sentence, maybe even life, if the jury went the other way. So, he made what he thought was the only choice he had left: to take the deal and do the time.
Him being my brother, they pretty much used that against me. You know what I'm saying? Knowing that my brother really couldn't go to trial, so to get me to cop out to something, they really cared about me. The whole time they cared about me.
Prison, though, became the place where Tru Life finally slowed down. He wasn't the same wild figure from the DVDs or the streets anymore. Behind bars, he started doing something he'd never done before: reflecting. He immersed himself in education and spirituality, spending his days reading, studying, and finding ways to rebuild his mind. He earned 2 degrees, one in business and another in biblical studies, and he began to understand peace in a way he never had before. Tru Life described prison as the most negative place in the world, but instead of letting it break him, he used faith to stay centered. He said that his spiritual growth kept him from being on edge all the time and gave him strength to survive the years he had left. After serving 5 years of his 8-year sentence, Tru Life walked out of prison in April 2016, a changed man. He wasn't interested in reliving old beefs or going back to that reckless life. He had lost too much: friends, time, and opportunities, and now he wanted to move differently. He talked about how the pain and chaos of his past had taught him that not every fight was worth it. The man who once lived for the thrill of confrontation now wanted peace. That same year, fate brought him face to face with Prodigy. By then, both men were older, more reflective, and dealing with their own struggles. Prodigy had been battling his lifelong sickle cell condition, and Tru Life had just come home from prison, trying to start fresh. The two had been enemies for years. Their history was marked by humiliation, violence, and tension that spilled far beyond music. But after all that time, both were ready to let it go. Their reconciliation didn't happen by chance. It was actually set up by someone who knew both worlds well: former NBA star Metta World Peace, who had grown up in Queensbridge, Mobb Deep's neighborhood. He acted as the bridge, bringing the two together in a private meeting that ended up being surprisingly emotional. Tru Life later said that Prodigy didn't come into the meeting with ego or resentment. Instead, he came with honesty. Prodigy admitted that he'd made mistakes, and Tru Life did the same. They both apologized to each other like grown men, leaving the past behind them. Tru Life said that moment meant everything to him, because it showed that Prodigy had matured and found real peace in his life.
It just showed me he was a good person too, and we just had a genuine conversation. He told me he was sorry. He told me he knew how he messed up.
To make their reconciliation public, Prodigy posted a picture of the two of them together, writing a simple caption welcoming Tru Life home and spreading positive vibes. It was a small gesture, but a powerful one. Two former enemies, showing that even the most bitter rivalries can end with mutual respect. Tru Life later said he was thankful they got that moment. No matter what had happened in the past, he still respected Prodigy as one of the greatest MCs of his generation. Sadly, less than a year later, tragedy struck again. In June 2017, the world woke up to the news that Prodigy had passed away while on tour in Las Vegas. He'd been performing as part of the Art of Rap tour when he was hospitalized due to complications from sickle cell anemia, the same condition he had fought since childhood. His death sent shockwaves through hip-hop. For Tru Life, it hit especially hard, not just because he'd lost a fellow artist, but because he just made peace with someone he once considered an enemy. Tru Life is no longer the same man who once stormed studios and taunted rivals on camera. He had seen too much and lived too hard, but through pain, prison, and redemption, he found a kind of clarity.